There were 3 bears who lived together in a house in the forest. There was a big bear, the papa bear, a medium-sized bear, the mama bear, and a little bear, the baby bear. One day, Mama Bear, who was a very good cook, made some porridge for the family. She put the porridge in 3 bowls, which were on the kitchen table. The big bowl was for Papa Bear, the medium-sized bowl was for Mama Bear, and the little bowl was for Baby Bear. But the porridge was much too hot to eat. "Let's take a walk in the forest," said Papa Bear. "It's a beautiful day. We can eat our porridge later." So the 3 bears left their house and went for a walk. A little girl named Goldilocks lived in a house not far from the forest. One day, she took a long, long walk into the forest. She walked and walked and walked. She walked very far from her home. Suddenly, she was very tired. Then she saw a little house. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. She pushed the door, and it opened. Goldilocks went into the house and saw 3 bowls of porridge on the table. She was very hungry. She tasted the porridge in the large bowl, but it was too hot. She couldn't eat it. Then she tasted the porridge in the medium-sized bowl, but it was too cold. Goldilocks tasted the porridge in the little bowl. It was just right, so she ate all of it. Then Goldilocks felt very tired. She sat down in the big chair, but it was too hard. She didn't like it. She sat down in the medium-sized chair, but she didn't like that one either. It was too soft. Goldilocks sat down in the little chair, and it was just right. But she was too heavy. Crack! The little chair broke. Goldilocks was still tired, so she went into the bedroom and saw 3 beds. She lay down on the big bed, but it was too hard. She didn't like it. She lay down on the medium-sized bed, but it was too soft. She didn't like it either. Then she lay down on the little bed, and it was just right. Soon she was fast asleep. The three bears returned home. Papa Bear looked at his porridge bowl and said in a very loud voice, "Someone has been eating out of my bowl." Mama Bear looked at her porridge bowl and said in a softer voice, "Someone has been eating out of my bowl." And Baby Bear looked at his bowl and said in a very little voice, "Someone has been eating out of my bowl and hasn't left any porridge for me." His little brown eyes filled with tears. Then Papa Bear looked at his chair and said in a very loud voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." And Mama Bear looked at her chair and said in a softer voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." Baby Bear looked at his chair and said in a very little voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair and has broken it." And he cried and cried and cried. "Someone has been in our house," Papa Bear said. "I want to know who it is." "Let's go and look in the bedroom." The three bears went into their bedroom. Papa Bear looked at his bed and said in a very loud voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed." Mama Bear looked at her bed and said in a softer voice, "And someone has been sleeping in my bed." Baby Bear looked at his bed and said in a louder voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed, and there she is." Goldilocks suddenly woke up, opened her eyes, and saw the three bears. She jumped out of bed and ran out of the house. She ran and she ran and she ran. She ran all the way home. "I'll never go far away from home again," she promised her mother. Goldilocks was very happy to be home. The three bears were also glad to be home. They were very tired, so they went to sleep. Papa Bear dreamed about looking for honey the next day. Mama Bear dreamed about the delicious bread she was going to bake. Baby Bear dreamed about spreading his father's honey on his mother's bread. They all had very sweet dreams and a good night's sleep. The end. This is a story about a little red hen. This little red hen and her 3 chicks lived together on a farm. An orange cat, a black and white dog, and a pink pig lived on the farm too. One day, the 3 little chicks and the little red hen were looking for food. One of the chicks saw something on the ground. "What are those?" he asked his mother. "Those are grains of wheat," the little red hen answered. "Can we plant them?" "Yes," the little red hen said, "but I certainly could use some help." "Would you like to help me?" the little red hen asked the cat. "No, I wouldn't," answered the cat. "I'm much too tired. I was thinking of taking a nap." "You wouldn't like to help me, would you?" the little red hen asked the dog. "No, I wouldn't. I'm even more tired than the cat." "Would you like to help me?" the little red hen asked the pink pig. "Oh, me?" the pink pig answered. "I should say not. I'm so tired I can hardly keep my eyes open." "Then I'll do it myself," the little red hen said, and she planted the wheat. The wheat grew and grew and grew. When it was ready to cut, the little red hen wanted some help. "Would you like to help me cut the wheat?" she asked the cat. "No, I wouldn't," the cat answered. "I feel like playing." "You wouldn't like to help me, would you?" she asked the dog. "No, I wouldn't. I've promised the cat to play with her. She doesn't like to play alone." "Would you like to help me cut the wheat?" the little red hen asked the pink pig. "No, I wouldn't. I feel like playing too." So the little red hen cut the wheat herself. After the wheat was cut, the little red hen wanted help grinding the wheat into flour. "I wonder if someone will help me," she asked herself. "Will you help me?" she asked the cat. "No, I won't," the cat answered. "I think work is boring." "Will you help me?" she asked the dog. "No, I won't," the dog answered. "I think work is boring too." "You wouldn't like to help me, would you?" she asked the pink pig. "No, I wouldn't," the pig answered. "Work is so boring that it puts me to sleep." "Then I'll grind the wheat myself," the little red hen said. So she and her 3 little chicks ground the wheat into flour. After the wheat was ground into flour, the little red hen needed help making the flour into bread. "Would one of you like to help me make the bread?" she asked the cat and the dog. "No, we wouldn't," they answered. "We were just going to take a walk." "Would you help me?" the little red hen asked the pink pig. "No, I can't," the pink pig answered. "The dog and the cat are going for a walk, and they don't know the way without me." "Then I'll make the bread myself," the little red hen said. So she and her chicks made the flour into dough. Then they put the dough into the oven to bake. After the bread was ready, the little red hen took it out of the oven. It smelled delicious. You could smell the bread for miles around. Suddenly, the dog and the cat appeared. "What a fantastic smell," they said. "It certainly is," the pink pig said. "It's a delicious smell." "Yes, it certainly is," the little red hen agreed. "In fact, I have never smelled better bread. My chicks and I can hardly wait to eat it." "It's too bad none of you can have any. If you don't share the work, you can't share the bread." The end. A boy and his donkey lived in a town far, far away. Every day, the boy would take his donkey to the woods near the mountains. And every afternoon, he and his donkey would return home for the night. But one day the donkey didn't want to return to the town. He wanted to stay in the woods, and he would not move. The boy was very angry at the donkey. He shouted and told him to get on his feet, but the donkey still wouldn't move. Night came, and the boy was very tired and hungry. He wanted to go home, but the donkey still wouldn't move. The boy thought about his mother and father, who were probably worrying about him. He started to cry. He cried and cried and cried. A rabbit, who had been playing in the woods nearby, heard the crying. He asked the boy why he was crying. The boy answered that he was tired and hungry. He said that he wanted to go home, but his donkey wouldn't move. He said that he couldn't leave the donkey alone in the woods. The rabbit promised that he would help the boy. He said that he could make the donkey move. The rabbit told the donkey to move, but the donkey would not. Then the rabbit shouted at the donkey, but he still wouldn't move. He just sat and sat and sat. This made the rabbit very sad, and he sat down on the ground next to the boy. The boy and the rabbit cried together. They were still crying when a fox came by. He had been visiting some friends when he heard the crying. He asked the rabbit why he was crying. The rabbit told the fox that he was crying because the boy was crying, and the boy was crying because he wanted to go home. But the donkey wouldn't move. He certainly couldn't leave the donkey alone in the woods. The fox said that this was very sad, but that he could help the boy. He would speak to the donkey and make him move. The fox told the donkey to move, but the donkey just sat and sat. The fox shouted at the donkey. He waved his fist at the donkey's face. The donkey still would not move. The fox was so upset that he sat down on the ground next to the rabbit. The boy and the rabbit and the fox all cried together. A wolf, who had been sleeping nearby, was awakened by all the crying. He asked the fox why everyone was crying. The fox explained that he was crying because the rabbit was crying, and the rabbit was crying because the boy was crying. And the boy was crying because he was tired and wanted to go home, but the donkey wouldn't move. The boy certainly couldn't go home without the donkey. The wolf told the fox that he could make the donkey move. The wolf looked the donkey right in the eyes and told him to get up and go home. The donkey stared back at the wolf and wouldn't move. The poor wolf was so sad that he started to cry. He sat down on the ground next to the fox, and he cried and cried. The boy and the rabbit and the fox and the wolf all cried together. A bee who had been making honey nearby heard all the noise. "What's all that?" he wondered, and stuck his fingers in his ears. He flew in the direction of the noise and found the boy, the rabbit, the fox, and the wolf sitting on the ground. They were all crying. He asked the wolf why everyone was crying. The wolf answered that he was crying because the fox was crying, the fox was crying because the rabbit was crying, the rabbit was crying because the boy was crying, and the boy was crying because he wanted to go home, but his donkey wouldn't move. The bee laughed at the wolf and told him that it was silly for a boy, a rabbit, a fox, and a wolf to cry about such a little thing. They all suddenly stopped crying and laughed at the bee. They told him that making the donkey move was not a little thing. They said that it was a very big thing, too big for a bee. The bee laughed again and said that he could make the donkey move. It would be easy. The boy laughed and laughed. If a big boy couldn't make the donkey move, how could a little bee make him move? The rabbit laughed and laughed. If a rabbit couldn't make the donkey move, how could a little bee make him move? And the fox and the wolf laughed too. If they couldn't make the donkey move, what could a little bee do? The little bee smiled a big smile and answered that he could make the donkey move. The boy, the rabbit, the fox, and the wolf laughed and laughed some more. "Just watch," said the bee. He flew over the donkey. He buzzed and buzzed and buzzed. The donkey looked at the bee. He would not move. The bee flew near the donkey's ears. He buzzed and buzzed and buzzed. The donkey didn't move. Then the bee stung the donkey on the ear. The donkey jumped to his feet and started to run. He ran and ran as fast as he could. The bee flew after the donkey, and the boy ran after both of them. The donkey ran all the way back to the town. He didn't want the bee to sting him again. The rabbit, the fox, and the wolf sat on the ground. They couldn't look at each other. They were too surprised and too embarrassed.